I'm Nate. I own the London Bar Consultants, and Merchant House is a bar in the City of London, just off St Paul. Some of you have been there, some of you haven't. Do go. I need the money. Um, the bar there, it's home to about 200, 250 different gins, 200, 250 different rums. The idea is that it's a celebration of mercantile history. And if you look closely, as I'm sure you all have, at the history of gin, you'll see it overlaps a lot with the history of rum, in particular with regard to the British Empire and ships, and you British were all lovely people in the past. So we wanted to celebrate that a little bit, and we wanted to really look a lot at the history. Now, 250 of each, 500 products is quite a lot. We don't have a lot of space. Space is limited, unlike the number of craft distillers. Wrong crowd? Yeah. In our place, we like to think we do things a little bit differently. Guests come in, they're greeted at the door, ideally. They walk downstairs, and you're met with a sea of booze, sea of bottles. We've got, tried to put all 500 on the back bar. They're all there in front of you. There's no order. There's not like it's separated up into rums and gins or different price categories or anything like that. It's just a wall. We've got too much to go on the bar. It spills out onto the floor. It's on cabinets. It's on shelves. It's on the piano. It's everywhere. And this is on purpose. We do this deliberately. We tell people it's because we want more and we want more and we want to really paint the whole picture. But there's a lot more to it than that. When people come into our place, they get sat down and we ask them, what would you like to drink? And they'll say, I'd like a gin and tonic. Do you have a list? We do not. Unlike a lot of gin bars, we don't have a list of gins. I'll just stick with gin for now. We don't have a list of the gins. We never will. We tell them it's because we've got too many. We tell them it's because it changes all the time, because we get excited about brands and then sell out of them and we can't get them in. We want to specialise in fine and rare. It's all jargon, it's not true. We don't have a list because we don't want our guests to choose. Choosing is not part of what they do when they're in our bar. In Merchant House, we sit down and we create something. A lot of you will be familiar with it. Some of you will at least recognise it, known as the tyranny of choice. You might walk into a cafe, for example, and you walk into a cafe and on the menu there's about 77 different items, and there's shepherd's pie and there's chicken korma, and you're like, I have no idea what I want to eat in this place. That's the sort of thing we want to create without the negative connotations. We want people to come in to sit down and say, I'll have a gin and tonic, and we get past the brands, get past the bottlings, get past how things look, and just ask them, what do you want from a gin and tonic? Do you, and it sounds very pretentious when I say it up here, I don't mean it to be. We say, well, what do you want? Do you want something fresh? Do you want something clean? Something citrusy? They're all the same thing. Do you want something rich? Do you want something unusual? Something herbaceous? And they might go, I want something herby. You're like, you want herbaceous? You mean, yeah, learn English. We don't tell them what it is. We'll be like, yeah, no problems at all, I'll get that for you. And we'll go up to the bar, we'll ring through what we do, and we bring it back and deliver it to them, and we let them taste it. And the garnish is obviously a massive part of this. We'll come to that later on, or I might not. We'll get to that later. But one thing when we discuss with guests about what exactly it is they want, when we really get to the crux of what they want from a gin and tonic, one word that's not used, and I have never heard it used, is craft. No one has ever asked for a craft gin. We've operated gin bars in London for a while. We've done it as a consultancy. We've done it as owning our own with Merchant House. And in all those years, no one asks for craft. No one asks for small batch. No one asks for artisan. So what is this big elephant in the room? What is this craft, and why is it here? Does it sell gin? No, it doesn't. Our two best-selling gins come out of Langley's. I don't think they could be categorized as craft. No one owns the craft label. If you don't own it, you can't define it. If you're not going to define it, it's a generic term. We ask guests what they want. We say, what would you like? They'll say, she might be Welsh. She'd be like, have you ever had a Welsh gin? I was going to do a Welsh accent, but I thought, I'm not doing. Would you like a Welsh gin? She'd be like, yes, fantastic. Maybe have you heard of Davile? No, right, it's a Welsh gin. They've got Davile and they've got Davile seaweed. All right, which do you think she's going to order? She's going to order Davile seaweed. They always do. Like with the seaweed one, that sounds fantastic. Does it? Seaweed gin. Okay, fine. You want it, you have it, and we give it to her. Now, it's clever. I mean, it's good tasting gin. Just back me up there. It's good tasting gin. But is the idea of creating a seaweed alternative to your classic gin, is this marketing spin or material consideration? Are those two even mutually exclusive? They're not. I think a lot of people agree with me and would say that decent marketing will make marketing out of your material consideration. That's where it all stems from. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. But having said that, anybody, no disrespect, but anybody can create a product. Gin is relatively easy to make because of the rules. Not everyone can sell a product. As a consultancy, we have a lot of people come to us and they go, "I've created a gin," and I'd be like, "Cool. And what? Like, what happens next? What's your plan? What's your game plan? How do you want to sell it?" And they haven't thought it through. I made a bottle of gin at City London Distillery at their gin lab. We went in and made a bottle of gin. I ignored all advice. I threw in some cardamom. I threw in some more cardamom. I threw in 3 cardamom pods to 1 bottle. And anyone who's made gin before will probably guess that tasted like cardamom and nothing else. It was appalling. What did I do? I sold it. Yeah? Doesn't matter. I hate, like, in the gin world, it's probably not what everybody wants to hear, but your gin doesn't necessarily have to be the best gin in the world liquid-wise to sell it. Although that is going to help, but it is quite subjective. If by material consideration we mean we do something for the sake of it, for the sake of doing it, not because of like that's how we're going to sell it, but because of that little extra ingredient that offers up and just makes the greater picture that little bit better. That raises a bit of an interesting point. I mean, that's probably gin in a nutshell. It's a list of ingredients that when they come together to create something greater than the sum of its parts. Does Tanqueray 10 sell itself on the inclusion of chamomile? No, it does not walk around going, "We are a chamomile gin." But chamomile is in there not to sell it, but to make it a little bit better. But maybe they should. Maybe they will. In our place, a guest comes in, and I'm trying to give you the sort of my angle from it as an operator merchant house. So we do deal with guests a lot, and if someone comes in and they're like, "I quite fancy something different. I fancy a martini." Fantastic, good for you. What would you like? Something graceful, something elegant. These words get bandied around a lot. You're okay, fantastic. I'll get that for you. I'll go away. I'll get one of the bartenders to make it because I don't know how, and we'll bring them over a Tanqueray 10 martini, and I'll tell them it's got chamomile and grapefruit in it, and they'll go, "Ooh," and they'll have a little sip and go, "Oh yeah, oh that's brilliant. That is fantastic. I love it." It's like, great. It's Tanqueray 10. You've probably heard of it before. You've seen it in the shelves. You can buy it in Waitrose, but you love it. You love it because that's what you asked for and that's what you got in that particular moment. And that's very, very important. We ask our guests what it is they want from it, and that's how they enjoy it. And if they do enjoy it and they go away and they come back a few days later, God willing, they come in and they don't come back in and go, "I'll have a Tanqueray 10 martini." It doesn't happen. They'll go, "I'll have that martini with chamomile. I'll have that one with the grapefruit zest." They don't come in and say, "I'll have a gin mare" again. They go, "I'll have the one with rosemary in it." That's how we sell gin, or if we sell gin at all. And that creates a bit of a problem. If someone comes in and says to us, "We'll have the gin with grapefruit in it." True story, a guest said to me about 2 or 3 days ago, at the start of this week, they asked me, "Are there more gins with grapefruit in them or more gins with juniper in them?" I didn't laugh. I didn't laugh at him. I was like, "Yeah, fair question." Well, not really. But gins will not advertise what's necessary. They will only advertise what's unnecessary. That's what makes them different. This makes them the point of difference. This tyranny of choice creates an opportunity for people to sell on their points of difference. To sell, we've got seaweed in it, we've got chamomile in it. This idea of craft, no one says, at least, or no one orders a craft gin. Craft means nothing in this instance. And where we exist and where I operate in the bars, craft means nothing at all. My best-selling gins are not what general people might categorize as craft gin. So we get around this problem by either knowing our guests quite well, and we do. Guests come in, they come back. So we've got like a strong repeat trade. They come in and we either know them or we put our faith in understanding our products. I've got some of those. We need to know as much as we can about every one of our products. 500 products on our bar, 250 are gin, 250 are rum. And we need to know, and our staff need to know every single detail about them. Because when a guest comes in and says, "I want the grapefruit one," and we say, "All right, do you mean number 3? They go, "No." "Okay, do you mean Sacred Grapefruit?" "No." "Do you mean City of London?" "No." "What do you mean? Which one?" And we've got to find which one it is that they want and offer it up to them. And make them like it. They're paying a lot of money for this. It's not a faultless plan, but what's the worst that can happen? They're going to end up with a gin that they've not tried before or they're not familiar with. That's kind of the idea of people exploring gins in our place. Now, that's not to say, just to clarify, it's not to say that we get rid of brands altogether. We don't get rid of this craft label. We don't get rid of labels in total. Some of you might remember a bar in Soho, just behind Oxford Circus. And they took it a bit far, I think, and they removed bottles and names completely from their offering in the basement. And they poured all their liquids into decanters, and it was like the bar without a bar and all of this. It failed pretty quickly. It didn't go very well. It's crucial that you don't make guests or consumers feel stupid. What they're really after is confirmation. They're after knowledge. They're after this confirmation of what they think they might already know. So if you tell them it's got seaweed in it and it does actually taste a little bit salty or a little bit green in some descriptions, then they will go, great, I like this. This equation works, this circle fits, and I will enjoy this again. I will drink this again, and you've got a consumer for life. If you tell them it's got grapefruit in it, it comes with a grapefruit wedge and it tastes like grapefruit, winner, all right? They think it's got grapefruit in it, it tastes like grapefruit, they're happy. That's how you make guests happy in our bar, at least. If you take all this out of it, you make them feel so stupid. You don't tell them what it is, you make them feel stupid. It's like a comedian not revealing the punchline to his jokes. It's not going to work. You need to have this big reveal. So where does concept of craft come into it? Why am I going on about this when it comes to craft? Craft is a little bit of a tool for this. Craft, we have a bit of a theory we refer to as stepping stone theory. People need a little bit of a stepping stone to try something new. Consumers need a stepping stone to try something new. Sometimes that's your cucumber garnish. Sometimes if I went to a town in the middle of England that never had cocktails and wanted to open up a really high-end premium cocktail bar, it would not work. It would fail because people are dubious of what they don't know. They want something local, they want to understand, and they want this little gateway into what it is they're going to consume or part with their money for. So does size matter then? Is craft a size thing? Is it to do with locality and size? Well, in terms of does size matter, it's tricky. I can give you a bar's point of view. Everyone in this room that works in the industry all wants the same thing. We all want the paying approval of our consumers. We all want our guests to come back and say, I had such a good time last time, I'll have another drink, please. Or they'll say, I enjoyed your gin so much, I'll buy another bottle, please. That's what we're after. Every one of us. Doesn't matter what angle you come from, as you want the paying approval of the guest. In small batch, terrible term. In smaller brands, this is an economy of scale. It can be quite expensive, so it doesn't matter how good or bad your gin is. And if you're doing it on a relatively small scale, it's going to cost a lot of money to do it. Expensive drinks in a bar require expensive surroundings. Okay, so if I owned a bar and I wanted to sell only niche small batch products, these cost me a lot of money relatively. I could just serve Beefeater. Yeah, I could just serve Beefeater. That's pretty cheap. Or I could put Tanqueray 10 in my speed reel, or I could put Warner Edwards in my speed reel, or whatever I want to sell. But expensive drinks require expensive surroundings. There's more to it than just the liquid. That's a really important thing for consumers. Stella Artois did it quite well. They released their chalice, didn't they? They wanted to become a more premium brand. They were the wife beater beer. They wanted to become something more premium. They didn't change the liquid. Most people go, maybe we could release something with gold flakes in it. It will be so premium. They didn't. They changed the glass in which it was served, and they had the fantastic strapline that really summed it up. And they said, you wouldn't drink champagne from a teacup. Well, that's exactly right with small craft gins. You cannot and you would not part with lots of money for a small craft gin in a dive bar. It doesn't work. The bar and the brand need to go hand in hand a little bit. Otherwise, they're not going to survive. At London Bar Consultants, we've continued to work closely with a lot of new start-up brands, a lot of whom play upon the idea of craft and of small batch, and they have this label of handmade, and there's a lot of them come to the market. And this craft and this artisan is like a buzzword for premium and for like artistic love and for the extra time put into it to make it a better product. And I find that absolutely fascinating. The idea of something being handmade and therefore that is better, I find that fascinating because that's not true. When I was 18, I lived in County Fermanagh, hence the accent, in Northern Ireland, and it is the sticks, right? You can picture it, it's all green, it's lots of water, There's only 2 towns with traffic lights. There's 1 escalator in the county. It goes up, you got to get the stairs back down. It's a small sort of place. And if someone had said to me that the 2 farmer boys down the road had started to produce booze, I'd have been like, oh lads, we're going to get drunk on some potching tonight. It's going to be rough. We'll not drink too much. We'll go blind. Come on, it'll be great crack. Let's go and do it. If today, 10 years later, someone said to me that the 2 farmers down in Fermanagh have started to produce a booze, I'd import it and sell it at Merchant House. How's this come about? Where's this swing come from? This seems almost ridiculous. It's something to do. I think a lot of it has got something to do with the route to market. The idea of in the last 10 years, the companies that have done quite well, things like eBay, Etsy, PayPal, all of these create a route to market for the handmade, for the craft, for the things you can do at home with a little bit of time and care, and then you can sell it. And gradually, this becomes quite a desirable. This desire hook has come to mean something unique, something special, something we can affiliate to. In the booze world, there's a bit of a problem there. During the same period, the booze brands have got bigger and bigger and bigger. They can start reaching a wider audience. They become slightly more ubiquitous. They find a more eclectic audience. They start being able to drink Tanqueray over here, drink Tanqueray over here, drink Tanqueray over here. It's good gin. Why not? But that opens up a real disconnect between the consumer and the brand. And this disconnect creates a bit of a void. This void needs to be filled. The farming boys who've stumbled across distillation, why should they produce a better product than a large brand? The large brand has all the budget to research it. They've got all the budget to do all their market researching things. They can buy any number of equipment. They can source any number of botanicals. Money's no object for them. So why has some Tom, Dick and Harry who are fed up of farming decide that they're going to produce a better gin? I asked a distiller about it last night. And he said it's because it's an economy of scale, and if you produce 1 million bottles a year and you can save half a penny on every bottle, you save a fortune. If we save half a penny on every bottle, it makes no bloody difference at the end of the day. I disagree with him. I don't think that's the case at all. I think the bigger brands are smarter than that. A lot of this chat about craft has this idea of telling bigger brands that they're almost treating them as though they're stupid. They're definitely not stupid. I'd argue it's because they have to be. The small brands have to be better. You cannot compete on marketing. You cannot compete on putting up an event on the South Bank. You can't compete on your bottle design. You can only compete on liquid. And your liquid has to be spot on. Is that what craft is? Is craft a byword for saying we put all our effort on our liquid and to hell with everything else? No, definitely not that either. Craft is a product of success of these larger brands. These larger brands pull away from their locality into a level of global dominance. The void opens up. It's filled by craft producers. Consumers want to identify with a brand. They need a stepping stone, a reason to part with their money, especially in this climate, in the climate of the last few years. Money's worth more. People would much rather buy 1 £10 drink than 2 £5 drinks. So they need something in which justifies and simplifies their choice, or to have no choice at all, with the tyranny of choice. They want locality, they want friendly faces, they want something that's got a point of difference. Craft is the banner under which these void fillers march. That sounds very negative. I shouldn't have written that. It translates as nothing, really. Nobody owns craft. No one can define it as a term. It's probably much to the disgruntlement of many craft producers that the word craft is now worth nothing. It's eroded. You've heard this argument before. It's a bit like hand-cut chips. Hand-cut chips aren't hand-cut. To be called hand-cut chips, you just have to press a button that cuts the chips for you. Hand-baked crisps, just have to have a guy at the end fishing the crisps out. It means nothing. The craft is like, it's a word of war between the small guys and the big guys. It's a banner under which all the small guys, if they want to be termed as small guys, can march. It creates an us and them. And it's a bit of a problem, I think, in the industry. This us and them, it creates almost a getting together of the smaller brands and thinking if we stay together, we can defeat the big boys. It's not going to work. What about the future? Well, how's it going to progress? I think there's three possible ways the craft is three possible routes that craft can take. One is you'll see more bars and brands teaming up. You'll see people putting emphasis on this locality and this point of difference, and people put trust in their bars these days. And if the brand has got an affiliation with the bar, then they've got an affiliation with the bar's guests as well, and that can sustain it for a while. You could have localised monopolies. You look at the likes of Tarquin's in Cornwall. Tarquin's has completely killed the market for gin in Cornwall. They have it. They own it. But not outside of it. Outside of it, they sell nothing. This localised monopoly is a very important part of what a brand can achieve. Or there's some idea of bigger brands buying lots of smaller brands and treating them a bit like a cooperative to the outside. There's no reason why Diageo can't own a small batch gin in Leicester and a small batch gin in Salford and a small batch gin in Bishop Stalford. You can keep all these small things, you can run them as independents, but all the money can be filtered to the big boys, and they can do what they want there. They can dictate price, they still have the buying power, they can still buy other bottles, they can still centralise the marketing department. But for craft really to keep going, and if it is going to keep going, it just requires more and more people to release gin. People will tell us, oh, the gin market's saturated. It's a saturated market. It's not. The whole reason it exists at the minute is because it is continuously new brands coming in, continuously new points of difference, and all these different brands, they create this tyranny of choice that we exercise at Merchant House. They create this tyranny of choice, so the result of which is that the point of difference for every one of these gins remains valid, and that's how they'll survive. And that's all I have to say.